The offer you can't refuse. I think Helmut made you an offer you couldn't refuse to stay with us again. And to be honest, we just talked about the presentation and that we have a new first one. And we talked about shorts.
Yeah.
Could you tell the audience what we talked about shorts, but just very shortly and not too detailed, please?
Yeah, well, you're the first audience that's listening not in shorts in like 6 months or so. And this is the first presentation I'm doing in normal clothes and normal outfit again. So that's strange for me. So yeah, this is a new start for all of us.
I had to pack my suitcase and I was taking the shorts and they thought, no shorts.
Thank God you're wearing pants, Martin.
Thank God they still fit for all of us after all these months.
But coming back to, well, the real world, the new start, like the theme of this conference is.
Right.
Do you think that we will have some changes in consumer behavior, that relationships will change from Corona, and that we will have a different world from now on?
Yeah, I think so. I think that a number of things, of course, will go back, but I think some new habits are here to stay.
And that's what you're talking
I'm
about
talk
today?
about that, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then I would say the floor is yours, the stage is yours, the floor is ours. The
Thank
stage
you.
is yours. Have a lot of fun with him.
Thanks, guys.
Stephen from Belleghem.
Thank you for the very warm welcome. It's really good to see three-dimensional people again. That by itself is an experiment and is really fantastic. The offer you can't refuse. This is a story about the future of customer experience. My clicker isn't working, just as a side note. Could you check that? Because I prepared 280 slides for the next 48 minutes, and it would be a shame if the clicker doesn't work with 248 slides. Do you think we can find a solution for it? They always find solutions. It's new for them as well. They haven't had real-life events in a year and a half, so we need to stimulate them. Will it work now? No, not yet. Not yet. Now? No, not yet. It will work in a second. Is this for you also the first live event in a long time? Yeah, for all of us. Is there anyone who says, no, I've been doing this all year long? No, we had no one like that. You never know that there's like a secret circuit somewhere. Not yet, I'm afraid. But we'll get there. We'll get there. To the people at home, we'll get there. Shall we do something else in the meantime? You want me to tell a joke? Oh, I have this great sentence that my son just learned me yesterday. It's a quote, but I loved it. He said, the strange thing is, if you order something online and it's being delivered by a car, we call it a shipment. And if you order something that is delivered by a ship, we call it a cargo. I thought that was a great opening sentence. Yeah, it works. So a good idea about the joke. You saved the day for all of us. All right, thank you guys. Now we're already offer you can't refuse. I don't need to explain you. If you look to what happened in the last year and a half, I think we all feel it's been the big jump forward. That's like we jumped to the other side. And I've been working with that a long time ago. For the last couple of years, I've been playing with this concept called the day after tomorrow. Maybe some of you have seen my presentation 2 years ago. That was called Customers the Day After Tomorrow. And I tried to inspire companies not just to look at what they need to do today or tomorrow, but also that day after tomorrow. And you know what? Many people were like, yeah, that's all really cool stuff, Stephen, but it's far out. It's far out on the horizon. And it always feels far out. And they're like, yeah, well, we have a steady ocean. There's nothing to worry about. And then suddenly we were surprised. And overnight, a lot of habits just changed rapidly. Yeah? And before we knew it, we were in that day after tomorrow. For me, COVID-19 is a time machine. It's like we stepped into it in March 2020, and now we're figuring out where it's going to put us out. We don't know. In my opinion, 2020 was the year of the largest digital training course in human history. And it's insane, if you think about it, how fast we were able to change our behavior. I mean, we were the kind of people that always said change is difficult. Well, we proved the other direction. We proved that we can change in just a few weeks' time, in just a few days if we have to, both as an individual, as an organization. This was mainly the big digital jump forward. And the guys from McKinsey did the math. they looked at it and they said, what we've done in the past year, this was 2020, what we've done in 2020 is a digital jump forward of 7 years. So basically, we stepped into the time machine in March 2020, and now it's like, in terms of digital behavior, that it's March 2027. We're in that day after tomorrow. And the funny thing is, we're already used to it. We're already used to it. It's like we changed in our perception, because in the past we believed that mobile phones were a waste of time to take selfies just to have some fun and to look at the news. Today we know it's part of our behavior and we cannot live without it. Online is always around. Look, we have people at home. It's always online. And I mean, we've all done these virtual meetings. I don't know if you guys ever thought about this, but when I see this, when I see Zoom or Teams, it always reminds me of the Muppet Show. I would love to meet the founders of Zoom and Teams, because they must have been huge fans of the Muppet Show. And when I'm watching these meetings, I'm always wondering, who is Kermit the Frog here and who is Miss Piggy in the room? Well, that's how you can make the assessment of an organization now. That's how, but it's our new normal. It's a big digital jump forward. But the most spectacular part, in my opinion, is the growth in e-commerce. I still think it's fascinating to see that e-commerce grew faster in 8 weeks' time than in the 10 years before. This was the biggest stress test of the system, and the good news is it did not collapse. I don't know how it was in Germany. In Belgium, we complained a little bit. Sometimes our packages were a little bit slower than normal, but at the end of the day, the system didn't collapse. We could handle a growth like that with our infrastructure. The time machine worked out pretty fine. And what you're starting to see now is that many people who discovered a lot of these new habits, they're sticking to it. 80% of the people who discovered e-commerce are still buying online. If you look at the financial results of some of these tech companies, they are, blowing away the expectations. Take Shopify, the largest e-commerce platform in the world. Their financial expectations were sky high. They just beat them. So in my opinion, we're not climbing the Matterhorn here. We're not going steep up to go steep down again in terms of digital behavior. We're climbing the Table Mountain. And the Table Mountain means that we go steep up and then we reach this new plateau. That's where we are today. And this is a perfect ground to think about how customer expectations will be changing and how our behavior will change. You don't happen to have a backup of this device, because I have to push it 3 times to move to the next slide. Just if you have a backup, that would be wonderful. In the meantime, I'll manage through it. But this is a good moment to rethink our customer experience. This is a moment to get more excited about customers. My parents just went to Tenerife. They got vaccinated. They went to their favorite hotel there. It was the 17th time that they're going to stay there. And it's going to be the last time, because the service was lower than before they went to COVID. And they were extremely, extremely disappointed. People understand that we're having tough times, but at the same time, they don't understand it. And they want to feel more welcome than ever before. And this is what we need to be focused on more than ever, understanding that customers are looking forward to come back to the real world, and that we need to be ready for that. And the challenge is, every single one of you believes that they're doing a great job in customer centricity. It's like in traffic. In traffic, you think that you are the best driver in the world. I think I'm the best driver in the world. It's all the others that cause problems. It's like this guy who believes that he's saving the planet with his security measures. That's how we look at our own customer centricity. But very often, the perception on the other side is different. This is the moment in time to look at how behavior is changing. And I think if you look at what's going on, probably a number of trends that were already on the rise before COVID came are just accelerated. Of course, people expect better digital experiences than before COVID, but there's more than that. At the same time, people expect also a more human approach than before. And at the same time, we're worried about global challenges. We got to learn that they can have a big impact on our personal life, and we're worried about that. These are 3 trends that were happening underneath the water, but now popped up and are becoming more and more important. That's the jump to the other side that we're feeling. And some are going faster than the others. But this is a great moment, because if you think about it, in March 2020, what happened? In March 2020, all routines, and I mean all routines in our lives, stopped. Before that, we had a boring life. It was the same every single day. And when we went out on a trip, we thought, oh, this is exciting. But we're doing the same trip year after year. And then suddenly all routine stopped from one day to another. It felt like the world didn't turn anymore. And it creates an opportunity, because now we're in a new phase. We're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And this is the moment where we all wonder, like Martin asked me, what will change and what will remain the same? Well, the truth is, we can define that ourselves. It's not something that will happen to us. It's something that we can create. And this is the opportunity, I think, that you have only once in a lifetime as an organization, that today the world is open for new behaviors, more than ever. And if we guide people into that new behavior, they will follow us. This is the moment to create a new routine. We don't have a new routine yet. These kind of events are fantastic, but a year from now it's going to be totally different again than it is today. Probably it's going to take another year and a half, 2 years before we find a new global routine. That means that we have this window of opportunity to make the change that we want to see, and people will follow us if we guide them. And that's what I've been thinking about. How can we create an offer people can't refuse? How can we set something in the market? How can we offer an experience to customers where we guide them in the direction that we want to guide them? And there are a number of dimensions that we can play with. If you want to create an offer you can't refuse, of course you need a good product and a good service and a good price. There is no doubt about that. We all know that. That's obvious. It's a minimum demand. It always has been since business started. But because of the big digital jump forward, digital convenience is now also the norm. We grew into it. We know what works and doesn't work. That's where we are today. And as a consequence, convenience has become a commodity. We know what works and we know what doesn't work. And that creates a zero tolerance for digital inconvenience. If something doesn't work, we get upset about that really, really quickly. And if you think that I'm exaggerating, I just want to do the test here with the 100 people in the room. Just think back to the last time when you installed a new app on your phone. How many chances do you give an app on your phone? How many chances do you give a new app? You can show fingers to give your answer. How many chances do you give a new app on your phone? This is the interactive part. We have to learn that a little bit again. Okay, this is cool. We have 96% of the people who says 1, and we have 4 extremely nice people in the room. You're one of them. You said 2. Those are the nice guys in the room. The other are the normal people in the room. But no one said 3. And then the second question comes, how long does that one chance last? Do you express that in minutes or in seconds? Wow, who said minutes? You're a nice lady, yeah. Who goes for seconds? Yeah, normal people. And you guys all look very sharp and beautiful and shiny. I'm very happy to see you. But I have to face reality. You are not a group of teenagers. Because we always tend to think that zero tolerance for digital inconvenience is something that teenagers want. It's something that my 72-year-old father wants. It's something that all of us want. Today, we live in this world of zero tolerance for digital inconvenience. If it doesn't work, we're not happy. That's why I would invite you to become, as from today, a friction hunter in your organization. Can you become a friction hunter? A friction hunter is someone who looks at everything you do from a customer point of view. And you try to identify frictions, and then you remove them one by one. And a friction is a point where you waste the time of your customers, where you outsource your work to them, where you make it more complex than necessary because your legal people asked you to do so. Those are frictions. And let's look at extremism of friction hunting. Let's look at the people of Amazon. I'm sure you're familiar with the Amazon Go stores. I talked about it in previous presentations. It's those kind of stores where you walk in, you scan your phone, and then you take from the shelves what you want, and you walk back out. So basically what they do, thanks to their state-of-the-art technology, they remove all frictions from the shopping experience. You don't have to wait in line, you don't have to scan your products, you don't have to pay. Well, you do have to pay, but it happens automatically, right? So everything that we hate, where we waste time, is removed. So you could say, hey, congratulations, Amazon. This is the perfect frictionless experience. But then someone at Amazon is like, no, this is not good enough yet. Because if you walk in, you need to take your phone, you need to find the app, and then you have to scan the app. That's 3 steps to get into that store. Can you imagine that? That is not customer-centric. Those are frictions. I mean, if you have a big purse, it may take up to 7 seconds to find your phone. You don't want to do that. So they said, we need to change that. So they invented this system where you just show your hand, which is linked to your Amazon ID, and you walk in. The 3 steps became 1 step. That's the level of extremism that these guys have when they think about frictions. Be very detailed to look at the frictions that you have and become a friction hunter. Because today, we live in the world of zero tolerance for digital inconvenience. It's part of where we are. And now, of course, in the next decade, what's going to be really cool is that we're going to see more and more automation. AI will play a bigger role in customer service and in customer experience than ever before. And today, we're still in the first half of that curve, right? And we know from the past that the really exciting things, they happen in the second half of the curve. The next 10 years. Just look back to the moment of the announcement of the iPhone. Remember that moment, 2007? Steve Jobs said one more thing and he showed the iPhone and the world changed from that moment. Do you remember the sentence that he used to describe the iPhone back then? Anyone who remembers the one sentence that he used to tell us what the iPhone would become? No, that wasn't it. It would be a good one, but it wasn't it. He said it will become your life in your pocket. If you look back now, 2021, this is an accurate description of the future. Back then, we were like, what the hell is Steve Jobs talking about? Our life and our future. We used our phones to make phone calls with back then. And do you remember, is there anyone who remembers what the most popular app was in 2007 to demonstrate the power of the iPhone? Anyone who remembers that? That's good news, because if you do, it's very embarrassing. I had it on my phone. It was this one, the iBeer app. Do you remember that? Have you ever seen it? You push the button, and then a virtual beer pops up, and then you can drink the virtual beer with the sensors of the iPhone. Extremely embarrassing. And then it becomes worse, because then you put the phone down, and then the phone burps. And we were like, wow, this amazing what you can do with this iPhone. I still remember that I showed this to my mom, and the look in her eyes told me everything. I mean, all the trust that I built up over the years was just gone in a matter of 3 seconds. That's how we used the iPhone in 2007. Today, of course, we all know it's a partner in our life. And the description is extremely accurate. The same thing will happen with AI. I mean, the growth of smartphones to become a partner in life happened between 2014 and 2021, not in the first half. It happened in the second half. This is what we're going to see with AI. I mean, look at these voice assistants. I'm sure some of you have them at home, Alexa or Siri or Google Assistant. I have them all. They're friends of the family. But they're also a gimmick. I can live without them, to be honest. I use them as an expensive kitchen timer, or I ask them about the weather if I'm too lazy to look through the window. And they're really good in asking for a song. That's the killer application. But it's still a gimmick. But if they work really well, if we have the iPhone after the BlackBerry moment for virtual assistants, I mean, that's going to be an awesome moment in our lives, because then we're going to have a new partner in life that will do an outstanding job. But that's going to happen in the second half of the curve. And then, once we're in that moment, we will see how customer relations are changing. And I think the first phase where we're going to see that is behind the scenes, where we will use technology to boost the productivity of our teams, create intelligence augmented. Make sure that we have the right technology to create a better customer service. Let's look at this example here. Digital Genius, company based in San Francisco. And they work for KLM. And basically, they combine the best of humans and digital. What they do when they come in is they dive into your customer service data of the past. So they look at all the data that you have, they go into your database, and they translate it into a mathematical model, into algebra. Then a question of the customer comes in. For instance, can you rebook my flight? That question gets translated into algebra again. And then the computer dives into the data of the past to formulate an answer on this real-time question. That answer is presented to the customer service agent behind the scenes, and that agent can then decide if they will use the answer, if they will use it entirely, if they will personalize it, play with it, adapt the tone of voice maybe a little bit. So KLM is using this Because of this, KLM can now answer more questions per hour than any other European airline in a more personalized way. And the customer doesn't get it. The customer just thinks, wow, KLM is so much faster than Lufthansa. They must have better people than Lufthansa. That's not the case. Lufthansa has wonderful people. But KLM figured out a way how to increase the potential of their people, intelligence augmented. That's where we're going to see the first phase of an increase in quality of AI helping behind the scenes. And in the next phase, and if you look carefully, you can already see this in the world, in the next phase, it will come to the front as well. Are you guys familiar with Shein? Who knows Shein? Okay. From all these people, do you have daughters? You as well, or you're a client yourself? Do you buy there yourself, Anya? You know it, yeah. For all the others, it's okay that you don't know Shein, because it's mainly popular with younger ladies, younger girls, that get addicted to the platform. It is the most popular fashion platform in the world at this moment. It's a Chinese company. Most people don't know that it's Chinese, but it's far more used than Zalando is, for instance. It's far more popular than H&M and Zara online at this moment. People get addicted to it. It's a new platform that grew below the surface, and it grew with 100% 8 years in a row. And today, if you look at the online market share, the amount of visits on their platform, they have more visitors on their platform than H&M, Zara, Uniqlo, and all those other brands together. In fact, more than 50% of all the fashion website visits in the world go to Shein. And only 3 out of 100 in this room have ever heard of it. But the world woke up last month when this news popped, that now in the United States, there are more phones that have Shein as a shopping app on it than phones with Amazon on it. And 97% of you have never heard of it. And it's what they call the TikTok of e-commerce. This is real-time fashion. What is making them so popular? Artificial intelligence. They look at the behavior. Imagine that as from today, you would start to use Shein. They will look at your behavior just like TikTok does. They look at what you do. They look at what you look, what you click, what your interests are. And then based on your behavior, they're starting to create fashion just for you in China. Sometimes they only make like 10 fashion items for a certain group of people because they know there are 10 people in the world who would like to have that kind of t-shirt. And they own the full cycle from the back office to the front office. They don't have any stores. They make it very cheaply. It's like half the price of Zara, and it's the same quality of Zara. But they ship it in 3 days from an idea of a product, making it and delivering it at your doorstep. That process takes 3 days at half of the price of their main competitors. And it's fully personalized to your personal taste after a while. So you can imagine why it's addictive for many of these younger girls, because every time they go to the platform, they're new fashion items, and they're perfectly within their taste, and they're extremely, extremely cheap. And you see that they're growing below the surface. Like Zara is losing, it's the top one there. Zara is losing market share, and they're like, yeah, it's COVID, COVID, really bad for us, COVID. It's not COVID. It's Shein that is completely taking over their market. Same quality, same approach, but faster and cheaper and more personalized. This is AI in the working. This is AI where you have it in the interface, where it's linked to products, where it's linked to production. This is the end game. This is what we're going to see more and more. It already exists, but this is going to become the standard for many, many services and many products out there. And the interface of the future will look like this. It will become totally invisible. When you use Shein, you don't have a clue what's going on behind the scenes. With KLM, you don't have a clue what's going on behind the scenes, but you just think, wow, this is great service. Invisible, fully personalized. It's not the average customer that matters, it's the individual one. It requires 0 effort from the user, and it's proactive in its performance. This is where we're growing into, and this will go fast. The big digital jump forward catapulted us in the future with 7 years, and now you see these new models popping up everywhere. This is where we are. And expectations are rising rapidly, And expectations are now going further than just a convenient platform. In the past 10 years, you could differentiate yourself with convenience. Today, you can only do that in a negative way. So if you want to create an offer people can't refuse, we need to go further. We need to have the minimum demand. We need to know how digital is evolving. But I also like to work with 2 dimensions, how you can differentiate yourself towards customers these days, taking into account the new needs that they have. I play with these 2 dimensions, and I'm going to dive into them deeper. Can you become a partner in life of your customers, and can you add value to society? If you manage to combine all that, that's the moment when you reach that offer you can't refuse. And it's a matter of building that relationship, becoming a partner in life that goes beyond convenience. Now, to explain what a partner in life means, I have to warn you a little bit. I'm going to come up with a crazy question now. I just want to get you mentally ready for that I'm going to ask a crazy question, but I invite you to join me in the craziness, okay? Here we go. Imagine that tomorrow morning you wake up and you're no longer in your beautiful, cozy bed somewhere in the beautiful Germany, but you wake up and you look around and you think, oh my God, I have changed into a rhino. Imagine that. Tomorrow morning you look around and you're somewhere in the bush in Kenya. And you think, oh no, I've turned into a rhino. Did you ever spend time thinking on what your life would look like as a rhino? Probably not, but that's what we're going to do now. But the good news is this. There's good news. The first thing you would be worried about is something to eat and drink. And you can do that as a rhino. Nothing to worry about. But there is a major problem. Nature made a mistake. Nature assumed that a rhino would have no natural enemies. Because if a rhino bumps into a lino, let me turn it around, if a lion bumps into a rhino, the lion is like, no, that doesn't seem like a good idea for lunch. Where are the zebras? That's the reflex of the lion. So because of that, nature was like, hey, nothing to worry about for a rhino, so we don't need to give all the premium features to that animal. So the eyesight of a rhino is not that good. Its smelling capabilities are not that great. And because of that, unfortunately, the rhino is an easy victim for poachers. So that's bad news in your life as a rhino. But thank God, the rhino has a partner in life. The oxpeckers, the birds that travel on the back of the rhino. These birds don't just eat the parasites from the back of the rhino, they also function as an alarm system. These birds have great eyesight. They can spot humans from a far distance, and when they see humans, they make a different sound, and the rhino hears the sound, and then the rhino knows, I need to get out of here, and then the rhino takes off. The oxpecker on the back of the rhino. Wouldn't it be great if your companies could become the oxpecker on the back of the rhino? Because the oxpecker is always around without being intrusive, and it adds value at the exact right moment. That's a partner in life. Always being around, but not intrusive, adding value at the right moment. Now, this is what I believe in is the future of customer relations. But there's a problem. There are 4 things to remember, and most people cannot do that, is what I've learned. So people come home and they say, Stephen talked about partner in life, and his message was, always be around. And before you know it, you're not the oxpecker on the back of the rhino, but you're the fly on the back of the cow. And that's not a good position to be in, because the fly on the back of the cow is indeed always around. It's very annoying, and it never adds any value to the life of the cow. There are too many companies who try to become the fly on the back of the cow. The challenges become the oxpecker on the back of the rhino. That's how you can make a difference. And if you want to become that, the challenge is understanding the human behind the customer. This is about understanding that every human has like a movie of her life, of his life in the back of their mind, with dreams and fears, with hopes and ambitions. And the better you understand those, the more value you can bring in the life of customers. Here, the goal is not to optimize your customer journey. Here, the goal is to optimize the life journey. Bring positive change in the life of your customers. Looking at it from their perspective. Not trying to sell them something, but trying to bring positive change. I'm a huge fan of this company. Maybe you don't know it. It's called Centraal Beheer. It's a company from the Netherlands, from Holland. It's an insurance company. But I love them. They are obsessed with customers. They have a net promoter score that is as high as the top brands out there. close to 50. And their goal is, of course, to deliver an outstanding service with their insurance products, but they also want to become a partner in life. And they call it a partner in sustainable living. So they create services to help their clients. You can get solar panels from them. You go to the site, you give your address. In real time, they scan your roof. They give you a proposal, and a couple of days later, they bring the solar panels to your house. They install them for you. Why? Because they want to be a partner in sustainable living. Plus, they have data. They have 5,000 data points of customers that were unhappy with suppliers of solar panels. So they perfectly know who the good and the bad people are in the market. They have something called klushulp. This is made for someone like me. This is like an Uber for chores. I have to be totally honest, I have two left hands. I mean, I have the two biggest left hands of Western Europe. I cannot do anything. So if I would have to replace a light bulb in my house, which I cannot do, then I could push the klushulp button, and they will send someone the same day to fix that for me. And the good news is, this insurance company that is becoming a partner in my life opens this up to everyone in the Netherlands. You don't have to be an insurance client with them. And they see that about 50% of the people who use these services are non-insurance clients. Imagine the potential that it brings to them. Can you add value to the life of your customers? It's not about selling cars, it's about becoming a partner in mobility. Take Toyota. Toyota is the largest car manufacturer in the world. Last year, a year and a half ago, they announced that they would start and create their own city. Woven City, close to Mount Fuji. A living lab where by the end of next year, people should be living. And the crazy thing is, if you look at Woven City, it is a city without cars. They believe that the city of the future won't have any cars anymore. It has public transportation, it has logistics systems, but no cars. So the biggest car manufacturer in the world believes that in the long future, they will be out of business. So they want to create the future themselves and build cities around humans, and look what kind of mobility services we will need. Partner in life. If you're in financial services, it's not about just optimizing financial transactions, it's about creating a worry-free future for your clients. If you're having a gym, it's not just about having the gym and all the tools and the personal trainers, it's about facilitating a healthy lifestyle. It's a different point of view. It's about how can we bring positive change in the life of customers, and how can we facilitate that to help them with that. And of course, us humans play a role in that as well. I mean, I've been talking a lot now about digital, but as a consequence of the big digital jump forward, I mean, the consequence is that humans in the relationship become scarcer than ever. And there's this old economic law that learns that if something becomes scarce, it increases in value, right? So the human part will become more premium than ever. Being helped by a human will be extremely premium, on the condition that that human excels in human skills. Humans will have to invest less in the operational part of the relationship and more in the emotional one. Empathy, passion, creativity. And the more digital the world becomes, the more valuable these assets will be. Computers personalize, people make it personal. Sounds the same, but it's different. And sometimes we make the mistake that we think if a human is part of the relationship, that by definition it's better. That's not the case. Machines can do a great job. Humans can lift it, but humans can pull it down as well. We've all been there. That you think, I wish this person was replaced by a robot. That reflex, we've all been there. But if humans do a good job, they can add a lot of value. But I believe that because of what happened, and because also for the need of partner in life, that the role of humans will fundamentally change now in the next couple of years. I'm fascinated by Volvo. I had the pleasure to work a lot with Volvo in the last few months after they announced this in the market. I don't know if you've seen this, but a couple of months ago, they announced that by 2030, you will only be allowed to buy a car online from Volvo. You cannot buy a car in the dealerships anymore by 2030. Now, I read this, and I was thinking, like, imagine that you have a dealership and you just invested a couple of millions to upgrade your facility. I mean, that wasn't the best day of your career when you see that. And then the question pops up, is Volvo going to be like Tesla? Tesla is close to digital only. I don't know if you've ever been to the Tesla website, but if you go to the Tesla website, just as a warning, be very, very careful, because before you know it, you bought a car. By accident, you could buy a car. Oh, I accidentally bought a Model S here. That's how easy it is to get one. That's not what Volvo will do. Volvo will use digital to sell cars, but they will use humans for a different role in the process. They will try to figure out to combine the best of both worlds. And they will try to see, or they will try to make sure that if you buy a car, that it's so easy that you do not need a human anymore for that. But that the humans in the locations, in the dealerships, will give you all the additional services, explanation, help to make the service process as good as possible. And in all honesty, they don't know exactly what that will be like. But they don't see any added value anymore in buying a car with a human in 2030 because it will be so simple. Humans will have to excel in this: empathy, passion, creativity. And then you can make a difference. It's about the human behind the customer. And then sometimes people ask me, okay, but how do we start? Because this is about empathy, right? This is about empathy. It's about understanding how other humans feel and then acting upon that. Now, there's a very strong belief that I have that if you want to create a boost in empathy, you need to make sure that as many people as possible in your organization get closer to the customer. Now, to explain my point and to prove my point, let's talk about soccer. It's an important night for all of you. So I thought we need to talk about soccer just to get into the atmosphere a little bit. I'm sure that you guys had the same thing like me. If you're a soccer fan, in the last year and a half, we watched so many games in empty stadiums. It was terrible. And it must have been terrible for the players. Because those players, those professionals, they grew up in a world of direct customer feedback. I mean, if you play in a full stadium and you do something amazing, you get cheered at. If you do something stupid, you get booed at, right? If you score a goal, it's like an explosion of emotions. So these guys used to grow up in a world of direct, real-time customer feedback. And suddenly, silence. I mean, imagine what that must have done with them. And you could feel that in the energy in a lot of games. It was different without an audience. The results would have been different with an audience in many games, I'm sure of that. Now, the truth is that in many companies, the senior leadership plays always in an empty stadium. And afterwards, they just look at the stats and they say, oh, we had 500,000 people watching the game. We had 60% possession of the ball. It was a good game. They look at the stats. And if you only look at stats when it's about your customers, what you're doing, slowly but certainly, is dehumanizing your customers. They become a report. The voice of the customer becomes a report, becomes an abstract figure. I think the challenge of all of us is to make sure that everyone in the organization gets direct feedback from a customer. Imagine what would happen if in your company, every individual, I mean everyone, would spend just 10 minutes a week to call with a customer, to listen to a customer, to have direct feedback from a customer, what that would do with the overall empathy in your organization. It would change tremendously. And I think that's the kind of asset and the kind of knowledge and empathy you need to transform successful in becoming the oxpacker on the back of the rhino and being a partner in life for your customers. That's layer number 3. And now we have the top of the model. Having impact on society. Today, more and more people are starting to look at organizations to take their responsibility. We all know that we have a lot of challenges on our plate. We still have a fight against racism and discrimination. We have a climate issue that is becoming more and more urgent every single day. And we're still in the largest healthcare crisis of our generation, with a devastating impact on individuals and businesses and society as a whole. There's a lot on our plate, and we know that. More and more customers are now looking at you, the business community, to make a positive change and to become part of the solution. In fact, there's a higher level of trust that business leaders can deal with this than government leaders can. And about 3/4 of the world population asks business leaders, please be proactive in what you do. Don't wait until the government forces you to do something. Just be proactive in that process. This is where we are today. And maybe you think, oh, Steven, changing the world, I mean, that's like a vague sentence and we're just a bunch of German companies. We cannot change the world. And probably that is true. But you can change your world. You can have an impact on your world. You can change things for the better. Like, look, every year there's this spectacular moment in time when you look at the people just going in on Black Friday. I don't know if you watched that, these kind of videos. I look at that year after year with great astonishment to see that people are actually willing to risk their life to get a cheap toaster. That's apparently very valuable in your life to get cheap toasters and stuff like that. So you wake up at 4 in the morning and then you fight your way through to get a cheap toaster. That's part of society. But I think if we see these videos that we all understand, this is not the kind of future that we need to see. So I get excited when I see a company like IKEA using that moment to use their strengths to change their world. And they launched Buyback Friday. So every year on Black Friday, they have Buyback Friday. And Buyback Friday is a fantastic initiative. They ask their customers if they have a piece of furniture in their house, in their garage, in their storage that they don't use anymore. And then they ask them, why don't you bring it back to us? And we're going to pay you a little bit of money for that. And we're going to, repaint the furniture. We're going to make it look good again. And then we're going to give it a second life. Then we're going to sell it again at a cheaper rate for people who want to get that furniture, that like that, but don't want to spend the full amount of money on it. So they create their own circular economy. And this is the most crucial part. They involve their customers in that. So if you want to change your world, if you want to have an impact on society in a way that it adds value to your customer relation, the caveat is to bring in the customer in the equation. Don't just do things and tell them, involve them in the process. Then they will understand how they can bring change in the world. And if you ask yourself, okay, Steve, but how do we start thinking about this? Think about this. Ask yourself if there is a trade-off in your industry. A trade-off for the customer. Because in most industries, there's a trade-off. This is a famous one. Every day, we choose between privacy and convenience. And usually, we choose convenience over privacy, and we're not always happy with it, but that's what we do. It's a trade-off. Sometimes we want to buy something very cheap. We want to have very cheap t-shirt, but we know it's probably not produced in an ethical way. But still, we want to have that cheap t-shirt, so we buy it. It's a trade-off. Or we like to travel even though it's bad for the planet. It's a trade-off, but hey, we're going for it. What is the trade-off in your industry? And the moment you know the trade-off, you can identify it and then you can reduce it. And sometimes it's very straightforward. Sometimes you have very simple trade-offs to solve. Like take this one here. Fireworks. Many people like fireworks on New Year's Eve or when you go to Disneyland. But the truth is we like it, but many animals hate it. Horses become aggressive by it. Dogs are really scared about it. So it's a trade-off. We like to do it, but animals hate it. So can we solve that trade-off? Yes, we can solve the trade-off. Today, you have these miniature drones. You can just pull them up by the thousands, and they can create a fantastic light and sound spectacle that is maybe even better than the fireworks shows, without the downside for the animals. So we can solve the trade-off. There are many trade-offs out there. Let's go back to this one here. For instance, I'm not a vegetarian. I like to eat meat. I like the taste of it. I like the smell of it. I like to eat meat. Even though I know it's bad for my personal health and I know it's bad for the planet, I still eat meat. That's a trade-off. Can we solve that trade-off? Yeah, we can solve the trade-off. Companies are working on that. You have Beyond Meat. You have Impossible Foods. Companies that are making plant-based meat, not targeting vegetarians, but targeting people like me. They want to mimic the meat experience. That's what they want to do. And they're not there yet. I know that there's still a difference. But imagine 5 years from now, 7 years from now, how this could evolve. And you feel how they're getting traction. You can get them at McDonald's. You can get them at Burger King. You can now get them in supermarkets. So they're getting traction. And the moment that these guys succeed in their mission, well, that's the moment when that trade-off in the industry is completely gone. What's the trade-off in your industry? Can you identify it? Can you reduce it? Can you eliminate it? That's the kind of mindset that we need to have a positive impact on society and change the world, take our responsibility. And that's the top of the model. And it's a growing need among customers. 4 layers that add value to the modern customer relationship. And if you bring them together, that's the moment when you have an offer you can't refuse. 4 dimensions that bring value. Tell them in one storyline and you can make a difference. And this is where we are today. Digital has become a convenience and people expect more than just that. And the invitation that I have for you guys is to think about this. But I just want to add one more layer to the whole thing. Remember this quadrant, right? Now, there's one more thing that we need to add to make the strategy right. And to do that, I'm going to open up the Disney moment in my presentation. If you know me, you know that there's always a Disney moment in the presentation. Well, if you're wondering if it would still come, here it is. I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with the movie of Aladdin and the lamp. You're all familiar with that movie? All seen it? All right, that's good. You've done your homework. So you know how it works, right? You find a lamp, you rub the lamp, the genie pops out, and the genie says, Stephen, I am your master. You have 3 wishes. And then I can take my wishes. And you can ask for almost everything. They're just small, minor rules. You cannot ask for more wishes. As a Belgium, that's our first reflex. We're going to ask for more wishes. No, not allowed. You cannot ask that someone falls in love with you. And you cannot bring someone back from the dead. Those are the rules. I cannot change it. The genie told me. Now, have you ever thought about what you would do if you would find a lamp? Did you ever ask your children what they would do if they find the lamp? It's a fantastic conversation. I'm ready for it. In all honesty, it's on my phone. My list is on my phone because I'm like, you never know. And I don't want to be starstruck the moment that genie pops up. So I'm ready for that. But what would be your first wish? You don't need to tell me, but what would be your first wish? Who would ask something for himself or herself? This is the moment that we can raise hands. Usually it takes up to 7 seconds before people are willing to admit that. I would ask something for myself. Who would ask something for themselves? Okay. Who would ask something for children, friends, or family? Okay. Who would solve a world problem? It's the nice people again, the same ones that gave 2 chances to the app and the same ones that talked in minutes rather than seconds. This is a fantastic audience. We have here 10 people that are willing to save the world. The other 90% thanks you because there's only one person of us that needs to solve COVID or solve the war in Syria or make sure that the Belgian government works fine. We only need one. And all the others, we can ask for our own stuff in the meanwhile. So we're very thankful. Now, this is an experiment that I like to do because this is how society works. 10% of us wants to save the world. The other 90% wants to be rich, basically. That's how it works. So if you think about your customer strategy, this has an implication. That means if you want to build the offer you can't refuse, this model works from the bottom till the top and not the other way around. There are a group of idealists that think differently, but if you want to reach the mass, this one begins with the customer and it evolves towards society, not the other way around. And if you doubt what I'm saying, think about this. Think about a restaurant that has a great concept. They get all their ingredients from farmers in the neighborhood, and when they have leftovers, they give it to the shelters for the homeless people. So great, great concept. So you think, I want to support that. I'm going to go there. And you order your meal, and the meal sucks. You're not going to go back. Even if you like the concept, you tried it out, you're not going to go back because your need is not fulfilled. First, we wonder about our need, and then it evolves towards society. This is the frustration of some NGOs that are like, Stephen, we're saving the world. Yeah, but probably your digital interface is just really, really bad. It starts from us, and it evolves towards society. So the invitation to you guys is, how far up are you? How far up are you? And some people are like, yeah, but this is great news, this presentation, because we're working on all 4. We have people working on digital. We have some CSR things. We're working on CRM. We're really good. But in most companies, those stories are totally disconnected with different agendas, different KPIs, different communication style. And because of that, I mean, the impact on the market is just limited. How far up are you and how well connected are these different elements? This is both branding and customer experience. This is telling a story and the customer experience delivers it over and over again. It's the combination of the two. Those are not 2 different worlds. In companies, we split it up. For the customer, it's one experience, right? And if you play the game right, the bottom of this model will create a fantastic transactional relationship, and the top of the model will create a more emotional relationship. How far up are you? And this is my invitation. It's not because we were successful in the past 10 years that it's going to be the same. Sometimes we can get surprised by changes in the road. And this is the moment to rethink that. And be honest with yourself. How far up are you on each of these layers? And my invitation to you guys is dare to dream about this. I'm getting attacked by a fly here. I've been making too many jokes about a fly in the past. My invitation to you guys is dare to dream. Dare to dream about these different steps and then reverse your way back. Don't just look at what you have and improve step by step. Dare to dream. Dare to look at what could be the best possible customer experience and then reverse engineer it back and start building that offer you can't refuse. Thank you very much with that. It's the fly on the back of Steven here today. So thanks for that. If you like my work, feel free to check out my Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn. I share a lot of content there, and it would be great that we could stay in touch there as well. But thank you for the warm welcome. Martin.
Stevens, thanks to you, first of all. That was a good start in a hopefully great day, and I'm quite sure that it will be one of these. There were a lot of thoughts in your presentation, and I really like one of the quotes. One of the first ones of you was, "Future is not going to happen to us, but we can create it." I think that's something where we really at the moment would like to believe in you and believe in this quote. But there were some other things in it, like the new job description of a friction hunter. I like that one especially. But in the end, you went to this metrics and the combination of social responsibility and of partner in life to build an offer you can't refuse. Most of your examples were B2C, and we got a question from our online audience.
Okay.
What about B2B?
It's a great question. For the people in my online audience that want to see a lot of it, if you go to my YouTube channel, last month I posted a video, this presentation, with only B2B examples. So they can check it out and they have 30 minutes of an answer. But to reply it here, all of these dimensions are exactly the same in B2B. Of course, a good product service price, no doubt about that. Digital convenience, that's something that B2B companies have neglected a little bit. Yeah, it's not going to go away on you. They neglected that a little bit, but I mean, it's the human buyer. Right? It's not a business buyer or a consumer buyer. It's a human buyer. I don't know any human in a B2B market that doesn't want to have digital convenience. So it's the same thing. Partner in life becomes partner in business. How can you extend your services, mainly to make sure that your B2B clients don't have to worry about the extended part of what you're offering? I have an example of a B2B company in the construction world. They're a painting company. And they were painting buildings and football stadiums, B2B settings. And they had this one big gig. It was Center Parks that said, you can refurnish all our little houses that we're going to rent out. And they won the proposal. But then Center Parks said, we already have one. Now we need to talk with the guys from the doors. We need to talk with the guys from the floors. It's going to be a disaster. And they heard that. They said, hey, why don't we take over this entire process for you? Why don't we take care of the floors and the doors so that you don't need to worry, dear customer? And Center Parcs said, are you willing to do so? They said, yeah, absolutely. We're going to take care of everything. They took care of everything, and they became a partner in the refurbishment of Center Parcs houses. Now they're doing them everywhere in Europe, and they're their #1 partner. And this is now a philosophy that they're using in all businesses where they are doing the paint job. They offer the broader service, and their customers are loving them for it. So that's absolutely a philosophy in B2B. And having a positive impact on society, you know, even if you would believe that, and I don't believe that, but if you would argue that in some B2B markets, maybe customers are not really worried about that, then your employees are. Today, this story is not just to customers. This story also works to employees. And if you want to attract the right talent, having a positive impact on society becomes more and more important. Yeah. So it's a 100% copy-paste to B2B in my perception.
So thanks, Stephen, for that answer. Any more questions? You have the chance. So we need one to make the first step.
There we go.
Please.
We have another question from the online audience. This is from Stefan Peper, and he is Prozessberater at Vielmann AG. And his question is, should not transparency be the goal and not invisibility?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was talking about the invisibility of the interface. That doesn't fight with transparency. Transparency is about what you do, how you organize things, and how you can facilitate or how you can make it trustworthy. Like when you look at the top of the model, changing your world, there you absolutely need to be transparent. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be transparent. So that's absolutely crucial. But the invisibility was actually talking about the interface, about the transaction. Today, you don't know how everything works behind the scenes. I mean, if you book a hotel room, you don't know how the system works in the hotel industry to make that happen, to make sure that you have your room. You don't care about the process part. There you don't need the transparency. Their invisibility is a good one. When it's about the total functioning, their transparency is absolute a plus. So I fully agree with that.
Use of data, for example, would be transparency as well.
Absolutely. What do you do with data? How do you deal with sustainability? Don't be perfect, be honest.
Yes, once again, our online colleagues are very
Yes,
active, and I think the ones in the room are not that active. So we should make it a match from now on. How many questions do we get here live, and how many? Okay, next one, but first that one.
So the online question first from Wolfgang Kropionik. He is digital retail at Mondi. And he says we focus on dialogue, digital and analog. He has the feeling that the digital interaction at the moment is still seen as negative, and he asks if there are any is there any proof from scientific research on that a digital interaction is still seen as negative from customers.
Well, look at behavior of people. I mean, people don't see digital communication as something negative. I mean, the first thing that you do when you wake up is just spend 15 minutes on digital communication. What people don't want is to waste time. And that's the same thing in the digital world as in the real world. Like, I remember that I went back to a store to get some T-shirts and some shorts for my children for this summer, like a real store. When they opened up, we said, well, let's support them, let's go to the store. I was so frustrated with the checkout procedure because I had to wait there for 8 minutes in line, and then they were playing with the loyalty card. They asked for my name, address, couldn't find me. I was like, this is a lot easier in the online world. There's just my fingerprint and everything is done. So people don't want to waste time. It's when it doesn't work that it's negative. So if they're getting negative reactions from their digital communication, probably it's not what people expect. So I wouldn't say people are not ready for it. I would say, how can we do a better job in it? It's very often when there's something digital and it doesn't work in an organization, the reaction is, our market is not ready for it. Market is always ready. You just have to do a better job.
I think it's often about the clumsiness of the first digital wave, and then the second and third comes. So if you look at the first iPhone today, you would say, okay, it's a little bit clumsy, isn't it? So now we have the second, third, fourth, and then it's getting more. I think it's the same for AR or VR things. Like, they are very big at the moment, but they might be very different in 10 years.
Take mobile banking. In the beginning, we were like, oh, mobile banking. Imagine now that they would take mobile banking away from us and that we had to go in all the time for a simple transaction. I mean, that would create a negative feeling.
Banks would be happy to get customers again to see them. There's the last question for the first session.
Hi, my name is Kai from Lingoda. You talked about data. So my question is, do you see different speeds in relation to GDPR standards and data protection standards, maybe compared with Europe or the Western world in comparison to Asia or other regions?
Well, that answer is really straightforward. I think that most openness to data, Asian world, then United States, then Europe. That's basically the answer to that question. I think the challenge for us in Europe is to create value for a customer and not being obsessed with GDPR. I see a lot of companies that now lurk against the border of GDPR and like, what is allowed and what's not allowed, to optimize their value. I think we need to optimize the value for the customer, because we're going to arrive in a world where the trade-off disappears and where the data ownership comes back to us. And when data ownership comes back to us, where it should be, where it belongs, then I can say, oh, you did a great job, you can have access to my data. These guys did a lousy job, no access to data. And the only way that you will remain access to data is by bringing value today. And by lurking close to GDPR to optimize your value, you're not going to get there. So I think we have some work to do there.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks a lot. And I think there is another applause for him. A real one, not a virtual one.
Thank you. Thank you.